Sean Hook's Newsmaker Saturday starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Saturday as we mourn the death of Americans lost and Afghanis lost in the carnage outside of the Kabul airport this week. We have to tell you up front as we try to dissect this, and we will with a Middle East analyst who's an amazing resource. We are taping here on Friday afternoon, so conditions on the ground could change. So forgive me if something happens that we're not alluding to, maybe Saturday. Hopefully, God willing, no. We're going to try to figure out where the failures were and what happened in this whole thing. Mike Pregent is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, a Middle East analyst, former intelligence officer with 28 years experience working security, terrorism, counterinsurgency, policy issues in the Middle East, North Africa, Southwest Asia. Mike, thank you very much for spending time with us.
Hey, thank you. I also was a company commander in Afghanistan in 2002 and then worked a problem set at CENTCOM when we were looking at what Al Qaeda was doing with regards to foreign fighter flow, and also we looked at the intelligence derived from the raid on Osama bin Laden. Wow. So
you've done it all.
There's a group of people inside the intelligence community that can't say what I'm going to say in this interview. Well,
say it, Mike. Where did we go so horribly wrong on this withdrawal?
We didn't. We downplayed the threat, and then we overhyped the capability of the Afghan National Army. And I'm not here to criticize the Afghan National Army. They've taken over 66,000 casualties, but I'm here to criticize abandoning it. And what I mean by that is, at the height of building this force, we had U.S. advisors embedded all the way down to the 10-man level, the squad level, the platoon level, the company level, battalion, and brigade. And as we began to shrink down during the Obama years, we stopped having visibility on the capabilities of the force by just basically embedding at that decision level, brigade and division level. And what I mean by that is that's where brigade commanders of the ANA, division commanders of the ANA, basically told us what we wanted to hear and not what we needed to know. And because as we shrunk down this U.S. embedded effort with the Afghan National Army, we also shrunk our intelligence footprint. The reason the intelligence community knows what's going on the ground is because people are on the ground. And as you shrink that capability, you go blind. So in this case, we downplayed the threat, the Taliban. We didn't talk about the Haqqani network. We're just now talking about ISIS-K. We didn't talk about Al-Qaeda. And our leaders appear to not even have planned for the fall of Kabul.
Okay, so Mike, there's going to be time to finger point, but I'm trying to figure out, is this an intelligence failure, or was the intelligence okay, but the decision makers, from generals on up to the president, completely got caught up in a political game of deadlines like August 31st and optics of, pulling out by September 11th? What was going on? I mean, this is really shameful stuff.
It is. It's a failure of leadership. It's not a failure of our military. It's a failure of military leaders. It's not the failure of our intelligence community. It's the failure of leaders within the intelligence community. And it's not a failure of, it's a failure of leadership. We had 23 of 24 State Department cables coming out of Kabul that warned against this, yet Secretary Blinken said, well, those were reports from that dissent file. We don't really look at those. We consider it a valuable way to express your concerns, but we don't really value the dissenting opinion. And that's embarrassing. That's shameful. We haven't seen Secretary Austin. Where is Secretary Austin? Where's General Milley? We only see these spokespeople that keep coming out and repeating these mantras of the Taliban, we're working with the Taliban, and they hate ISIS-K. That's not exactly how this works. If you hate America more than you hate ISIS-K, you work together, and we can get into that.
Yeah, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. It's that old thing. Mike, I'm curious about the miscalculations in Afghanistan over 20 years. Right. It's astonishing to me that where you've got tribalism as a way of life in Afghanistan, trying to imprint or impose the idea of a central government when they have no experience with that, and everything is kind of feudal and it's tribalism. How did we ever expect that we were going to remake that country in our image or some kind of democratic image?
Well, leaders told us what we wanted to hear, and our leaders went and only engaged with Afghan officials who painted these rosy scenarios, and you get lost. You get lost in nation building. You get lost in not understanding the culture. And there's a hubris element to all of this, where they actually believe that if they talk to an Afghan official for more than a couple hours, they have somehow changed that person's mind. And I've said in those meetings, and I've walked out thinking to myself, this general or this State Department official doesn't realize that they were just lied to. They were messaged to. It's a catastrophe.
Mike, is there a way in your mind that we can fix this structurally so that we don't keep going down these dead-end roads?
Accountability. General Milley should be fired or he should resign. Secretary Blinken should be fired or he should resign. Secretary Austin, the same thing. Accountability. Our battalion commanders, if they get an EO complaint or if they lose a weapon, they're fired and their career is over. These generals can do what they did here in Afghanistan and not be fired.
Yeah, and then they'll end up with a great job in civilian life if they want it with one of the defense contractors. So it seems to be this never-ending cycle. Okay, we are in this odd position of relying on the Taliban, our once sworn enemy, to get our people, help get our people out of Afghanistan and provide the security to get them to the airport. This, to me, I mean, Americans are watching this. I think they're like, what the heck is going on?
So we are counting on an al-Qaeda ally. That's who the Taliban is. And another al-Qaeda affiliate, the Haqqani network, that has command and control of Kabul. They have security there. It's their responsibility. They know it better than anybody else. And we were relying on al-Qaeda to keep ISIS from attacking Americans. That's how dangerous this is, and that's how stupid this is. The last time the United States folded after a terrorist attack was Mogadishu. And Osama bin Laden used the examples of Mogadishu and the Lebanese barracks, the Beirut barracks bombing in Lebanon as examples. And he said before 9/11, if you kill enough Americans, they will leave. And for the last 20 years, he was proved wrong until yesterday. Instead of expanding our security and expanding our protection zone and going out and getting Americans, we're collapsing that. We've made ourselves more vulnerable. And I know this tapes tonight on Friday, but let's forecast the next 3 days. I'm happy to talk about that.
We've got about 15 seconds. Are you hopeful we can get everybody out of Afghanistan?
No, we're going to leave Americans behind, and they are going to be taken captive by these terrorist groups. We are also going to have attacks before August 31st. That's the sad reality, because our leadership have failed in this Afghanistan fiasco.
Mike Pregent, Senior Fellow, Hudson Institute Intelligence Officer over 28 years. Mike, thank you. We're going to have you back, longer segment, okay?
I hope so. All right, thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate it. Thank you. When we come back, the head of the Phoenix Police Union on the DOJ investigation into the Phoenix Police Department. What is going on with this, and how does he feel about it? We're back on Newsmaker Saturday in just a moment. Earlier this month, a remarkable development in Phoenix as the Justice Department announced it would come in and investigate the pattern or practices of the Phoenix Police Department. This could be a wide-ranging investigation, and these typically last not months, but years. What does it mean? And we're going to get some perspective on this from the guy who runs the union that represents most of the Phoenix police officers. Britt London is the president of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association, known as PLEA, representing, again, most of Phoenix's officers. Thanks for joining us, Britt. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, John.
Let me first go to the sound. This is Kristen Clark, Assistant U.S. Attorney General.
A full investigation, but we approach this process with no predispositions or pre-drawn conclusions. Our pattern or practice investigations have been successful at identifying not only whether systemic misconduct is occurring, but also its root causes.
The majority of our officers out there act every day with professionalism and compassion. We've said this before. We welcome an outside assessment before, and we'll welcome this one with open arms.
Britt, does the chief mean that? I mean, does any chief actually deep down welcome something like this?
I do think the chief means that, because I think the chief is very confident in the policies that we currently have, and has no problem with anyone looking at that. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way. I think that I'm disappointed that the DOJ is coming to Phoenix. The chief has done a lot of work to try to be more transparent, to be more accountable to the community. When there's been wrongdoing, it's been addressed. But I'm not so confident that this pattern and practice investigation is going to end with anything less than a consent decree.
So, Britt, I'm curious. We've known that incidents happen in Phoenix. It's now the 5th largest city in America. But the DOJ moved in on Minneapolis in the wake of George Floyd. They moved in on Louisiana, correct, in the wake of Breonna Taylor. Are we in that strata here in Phoenix in police misconduct?
I don't feel that we are. I think this is completely political. But, again, I've said it before. I don't think that Phoenix has the issues that other cities have had. I think we're unique in that. But we're going to have to endure this investigation one way or the other.
Yeah, I misspoke. Louisville, Kentucky. I got my place on the map mixed up. Okay. This investigation, why are they here? What is it that triggered this, do you think? Or was it a series of things?
We actually met with the team the same day that they announced the investigation. Yes, we were able to. Mr. Rosenbaum and his team came down to our offices and talked to us. We asked some questions, but I asked that question specifically, and I was only told that the DOJ has had its eye on Phoenix for a while. That was the only answer I got.
For a while, meaning dating back to the Trump administration? Because they didn't do any of this, I don't think. Are we talking just a few months they've been looking at this, or what's the deal?
I can only speculate, but I think it's probably the Trump rally we had. But again, I'm only speculating.
Now that is interesting, because that's one of the issues, and we've got video of it. This was August of 2017. I was there. I saw a lot of this going on. You kind of sensed in the air when nightfall came there was going to be trouble, and Phoenix PD was ready. But they also were chastised after this, not only for firing rounds of pepper balls and they were moving the crowd back, but then this challenge coin came out of it. And this is an interesting development, because that challenge coin, just to describe, a challenge coin is something that agencies give to each other or to people. And in this case, the challenge coin on one side said, and somebody did this, and there are names out there floating around who was behind it. One side said, "Making America great again, one nut at a time." That's a reference to one of the protesters shot in the midsection, and it was on tape. The other side shows a man getting hit in the groin with a pepper ball, and it reads, "Good night, left nut." Now, in law enforcement circles, this stuff goes around, and it's a joke, and it's funny. DOJ doesn't apparently find any of this funny.
No, I don't believe they do. And there's still some ongoing litigation for the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association associated with that investigation, so I can't talk too much about it. But I think what came out of, if anyone read the Ballard Spar investigation, definitely some unprofessionalism there. But the intent, towards any kind of hate speech, racism, that was not there, and that report speaks to that also.
Yeah, in fact, there was a reference in there that the good night left nut may have been a reference to good night left, which was a Nazi thing apparently. But when I first heard it, I thought it's good night moon, which parents read to their kids. The children's book. That's the reference I took from it. Maybe I'm off.
Yeah, I had no idea either. Yeah, John,
Okay.
I had to be schooled on it.
But this is stuff that goes on. I mean, in police circles, it's kind of, gallows humor, funny stuff. But people right now, any attempt at comedy in that area, it doesn't play very well.
No, it doesn't. And, the police officers nationwide are being looked at under a different kind of lens now. So there's no room to have what some would consider a very dark sense of humor. There's no room for that anymore.
Is that fireable? Is that a fireable
No, I don't think
offense?
so. No, absolutely not.
Okay. Britt, the other issue that came up during this is obviously the idea that protesters, Black Lives protesters, were labeled a gang, and there was some end runs around the gang task force to designate some of these folks as a gang, to then give the police latitude and some more room to round them up and lock them up and take them off the street. That seemed to also get the attention of the Justice Department.
Yes, it did. And again, I can't go too much into that, John, just due to the representation on our end. But, I also don't think it's fair to shift all the blame on the Phoenix Police Department. There were a lot of people involved in that. Regardless, if Chief Williams wants to take all the blame for it, okay, I can't say anything about that. But that's something that does not entirely lie with the Phoenix Police Department.
Let me take you back here. Nicole Garcia kind of ran down the runs, hits, and errors of this past week. Let's take a look at her piece, and then I'll get your reaction on the back end.
Okay.
Dozens of frustrated people spoke out at a public meeting today, which focused on two major cases. One, the false gang charges that were filed against protesters last year, and two, that challenge coin that was created to mock protesters. City leaders and Chief Williams issued discipline and demotions, but many residents say that's just not enough.
She didn't know what was going on with anything, with the coin, with the gang charges. But then when she found out, she did nothing. How does she still have a job? She needs to be fired. Ed Zerker needs to be fired. Doug McBride needs to be fired.
A Phoenix protester who once faced bogus gang charges among dozens of residents demanding more action. They say reorganizing and creating new policies and procedures within the Phoenix Police Department does not hold officers accountable.
That's not enough. We need to see Jay Williams removed from office entirely. We need to see the assistant chiefs removed entirely, not just demoted.
First and foremost, I want to start off by saying the filing of gang charges against the demonstrators should have never happened. It was a bad idea. Systems were bypassed, personnel matters were bypassed, communication was broken down. So it flat out was a bad idea.
Chief Williams was suspended for 1 day for being unaware of the controversial challenge coin, which mocked a protester who was hit in the groin with a rubber bullet. The coin was created and distributed among Phoenix police officers.
I think we spent way too much time, too much energy, too much money, too much effort debating a coin, tens of thousands of dollars that we've spent when there are bigger issues facing us. This is beyond silly.
Things such as the Tucson Police Department investigating the Phoenix Police Department, I equate that to washing blood with blood.
The city manager has asked Tucson Police Department to head in an investigation into the challenge coin, but Tucson police say they're still considering that request. I'm Nicole Garcia, Fox 10 News.
Britt London is our guest on Newsmaker Saturday, president of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. Okay, right now on this city council, it strikes me that police support is hanging by a thread. It's a 5-4 right now. You've got 4 council people who would like to defund the police. You've got 4 council people who generally are very supportive of the police. And Mayor Gallego sided with the people who favor the police. But it's narrow right now. Where do you think we are as a city in policing right now, Britt?
I think the majority of the city actually supports the police. We see it every day. And I know it's unique, and it might, seem unfair for me to say that we get a lot of supportive calls here at the PLEA office, but we really do. We have people reach out that have a lot of the same sentiment that our officers do regarding the city council, and how can certain members of the city council say the things they do or try to take the actions that they do. But I believe wholly Phoenix supports its police department and will continue to. And I think we're going to hear a lot more supporters start standing up and voicing their support.
Britt, We've got a very capable woman of color running one of the largest police departments in the country, Jerry Williams. Well-liked, came up through the ranks. She's a local. My sense is that before this is over, there may be a serious attempt to drum her out of that job. And you wonder what comes after it. Because a lot of people, when she was hired, said, finally, we've got a woman who represents a constituency in this city where there had been some friction with police and continues. You know, sometimes change for change's sake is not a good thing.
Yes, and I'll preface before I say this. You know, Chief Williams and we get along. We're able to communicate. That's probably not something you see with some union leaders and their police chiefs, but we are. And I think just as we saw that piece with Nicole Garcia, you know, the chief took decisive action. Demoting assistant chiefs, moving people around, kicking people out of units. That's a big deal. It really is. So she's doing that. But, you know, for the activists, nothing is ever enough. It just isn't. That's how it is. But to see Chief Williams go and not know who would replace her, that is not good for the community here in Phoenix, not at all. In the time I've been here, I've never seen relations between the chief and the union as good as they are. Frankly, usually you guys are at each other's throats. The police seems to have a pretty good relationship with the chief, and that is uncommon, as you pointed out. Do you think that she's in danger? You've got a new city manager, Ed Zerker, who's been around. You know, he's been critical of what happened with Phoenix PD, but I think he generally supports her. He's leaving. You've got this investigation with DOJ. Do you think Jerry Williams survives this? I can only hope. I can only hope that she does. More importantly, I hope that the community here in Phoenix realizes that she's the one that needs to stay and lead this police department. You know, you mentioned our relationship. You know, we don't agree with Chief Williams a lot of the times, but we can be adult about it. We can do that. But, you know, to think worst case scenario that the people that on our city council that don't wholly support the police, who haven't publicly said they do, want to get a city manager and possibly a police chief that are like-minded here in Phoenix, that wouldn't be good, not only for our members, but for Phoenicians as a whole. It wouldn't be good. One more thing before we let you go. There are 2,836 sworn officers right now out of the allotted 3,125 allotted positions. You've got a deficit. Are you having trouble right now in this environment recruiting candidates? We sure are. We just lost 3 more in the last 2 days. That's not unique to Phoenix, John. Nationwide, recruiting and retention is a problem for police departments. So, yeah, it's a problem, and I think it's going to continue. It's not going away anytime soon either. Is it because the police feel not supported? I think that's one of the reasons. But also, you know, why come into this job at $50,000 a year when you can go drive a truck for $60,000, not get shot at, not get put on blast for, you know, handcuffing somebody who says, ow. You know, there's a lot of other jobs you can do besides this one. Britt London, president of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association, and we're going to have other perspectives on this DOJ investigation as we go forward. Britt, thank you. Want to remind you, if you want to see a past edition of Newsmaker Saturday, this is a place to go. fox10phoenix.com/newsmaker. You can find past programs there. We're back in a minute. Again, thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Saturday. I get asked a lot, how do I find prior shows? I heard about this interview you did with this guy or that guy or this woman. This is a place to find it. Go to fox10phoenix.com/newsmaker. All the prior shows are there, including this one, and you can pass it on to your friends, and we'd appreciate it. Thanks again, and we will see you next week on Newsmaker Saturday.